you have absolutely no idea how far you can go. And if you're comparing yourself to somebody who's the best, stop comparing yourself to it. Compare yourself to yesterday's self.
Yeah.
Because the only comparison you can ever make is to the person that was yesterday in your own body.
Yeah.
And if you can better that every day and keep doing that, you're gonna have days where it's not gonna be possible, but it's in them days that you gotta go deep in here and work on yourself and say, all right, how do I get out of this funk, or how do I get out of this moment and keep working towards what I want to achieve?
The Converse Cowboy Journey has given me an opportunity to sit down with some amazing performers from all walks of life, where it is my job to tease out their habits and routines so that you can apply and test in your own life. I've learned, I've grown personally, I've been enlightened, and I've been humbled. Above all, I've realized there is no destination in this life, no goal achieved, or money made that can replace the feeling of flow and the pursuit of doing what you truly love to do. With a growth mindset, I'm constantly asking questions and pursuing knowledge. The Converse Cowboy is a platform that allows me to do just that. I'm excited and eager to share their stories with you all. I'm Mike Roberts, and this is the Converse Cowboy. Brought to you by Fleet Feet of Monroe and Ghostwood Distilling Company.
This is why I run.
So I'm glad to be back in the interview seat, the host seat. You know, I took a few months off. It was needed. I started feeling myself get a little bit burnt out. Really needed to reflect on what this show is all about, what the Converse Cowboy is, and it's been great. And we talked a little bit before the show about some of that. But from the minute I met you, man, and from the very first conversations we had, I was like, yes, I'm going to have Kevin Kelley on the show. And to give those of you who may have never heard of Kevin Kelley, he is a sub-4-minute mile guy, if I'm saying that right. And I know that's different than most of the folks I have on, whether you're competing in rodeo or horse trainer or anything to do with the Western world. So he is a runner. Do not click off of the station yet. Hang tight, because this show is all about mindset. And I'll let Kevin describe like how fast a 4-minute mile is, because I started thinking about it, and it was like, we were doing a workout on Wednesday, me and the running group here, and we're in Monroe, Louisiana, by the way. I'm not in Texas. I'm nowhere else. I'm here in my hometown. And I started thinking about it. And so 4 laps around the track is 1 mile, right?
Yes, sir.
Each lap is 400 meters. You have to run each lap in under a minute. Simple math. I'm again from Louisiana, so we're not good at math, but that's very simple. And so we were running 200s and 400s, and I thought about it on the 200s. We were somewhere around 32 seconds, and like I wanted to throw up, like each one. And I'm like, God. And I thought about you. I'm like, damn, Kevin did this faster than this 8 times for the 200s, right?
Yeah.
Is there an analogy? Is there anything? We're going to get in. Here's what's going to happen, guys, for those of you listening, and why I encourage you to stay tuned in, even though this is not a Western related show. He's going to talk about his mindset, and we've had conversations off camera. We're going to get into some really cool stuff. So I encourage you to stay tuned. So Roger Bannister, 1950 something, breaks the 4-minute mile. It was unheard of at the time. I did a little research. Doctors thought he was crazy. They said that anybody who tries this is going to die. It was a barrier, right? A limitation that I guess humans at that time had put on themselves. And so he does it. He breaks the 4-minute barrier, I think 3:59 something. That same year, within a year, never been done before. That same year, 24 more people did it. And so then was born the Bannister effect. You know, what is impossible, it proves to be possible, and then others go and do it. So I'm going to stop talking now. I really want to hear from you. How fast is the 4-minute mile?
Yeah, I mean, I think the 4-minute mile, it's a feat that honestly, for a long time in my life, I honestly never really thought about. It's not something I remember seeing people do it and thinking, wow, that's really cool. And it was just not ever something that I thought I'd do. So it wasn't like something I put a whole lot of stock into until I kind of reached an age, like I was like 20, 21. So I'm 26 now. I was only probably 20, 21 where I was like, oh wait, maybe this is like something I could actually do. And then I like really started to think about it. And it's like, you know, you think about it, like to me, a runner is like 60-second laps back to back to back is like, when I break it down like that, it doesn't sound very fast. To me, it doesn't. But you know, to the average person, to somebody who does not run, somebody who is just a casual runner, you know, like a 60-second lap is probably like the equivalent of running like a 2:45 marathon. You know, not a lot of people can do that. You know, you have to probably train pretty hard, but that's only once. You're only doing that once. Now try to do that 4 times back to back. That's what that's like. I mean, that, and like that, I've tried thinking about it, like just as you were introing it, and I'm like, I don't know if there's a good way of like really breaking down how quick a 4-minute mile really is. But, you know, I think when I think about it like really hard, it's like the work that goes into breaking a 4-minute mile is a lot more impressive than the actual 4-minute mile. Like when I look back on, and I could go back over months of training from basically October up to when I did it in July. And, you know, that was like the work I'd put in before that was way more impressive than the 4-minute. Like if somebody came out and watched every workout I did, they'd be like, that's way more impressive. Right. You know what I'm saying? So it's like when I did it, the day I did it, I was like, I did it and I broke it and I was elated. I couldn't have been more happy, but I came off the track and I was like, oh, I'm like kind of good to go. Like I went and jogged, like ran 3 miles afterwards and I felt fine. You know, so like it was such a thing where like my body had become so accustomed to running that pace for 4 minutes that, you know, doing it and breaking the barrier was like, wow, this is great, but what's next? Yeah. Straight, like in my head, the next thing was like, what's next? Yeah. Like, what am I going to do next?
Almost immediately.
Immediately. Like it was like, I did it and I was like, on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of that was because, again, like I said, it only was until I was 21, 20 when I was just like, this is actually something that I might be able to do. Again, not something I could do, maybe could do if I keep putting in the work.
Yeah. That's what I want folks to get out of this. And hopefully this conversation we have today will relate to those, even if you're not a runner. It's going to make sense. Those people that run out there know how fast a 4-minute mile is. But hopefully those that aren't in the running community can take something away from the mindset.
More people have climbed Mount Everest than have broken the 4-minute mile.
So it's around, we were talking about this, around 1,500-ish. Y'all can fact check it.
Yeah, it's like 15 to 1,800.
Not many people
in the entire span of the world,
right?
Which is it's a crazy thing to think about, like that. You know, 15 to 1,800 people have ever broken the 4-minute mile, but more people have climbed Mount Everest. Now, in saying that, there is also a way that you can just fly to the top of Mount Everest and just say you did it. You know, there is no helicopter in the 4-minute mile. There's nothing that. Like you're on your own out on that track, whether you're racing some of the best guys in the world or you're racing in, you know, at Texas relays and there's nobody else on the track, you know, you're 50 meters ahead of everyone else. So sometimes it's just, you're just out there on your own. And that's the scary part about running for me is that, you know, a lot of what we do as runners is we're on our own. You know, whether we're with a group or not, you're like, for me, I'm in my head all the time. And like finding out, like, that's been the biggest thing in the last 2 years is like trying to figure out how to get out of my head when all I can think about is running. I'll go for an easy run on a Monday and all I'll think about is running for 70 minutes. And it's like, at some point I have to be able to switch off. So, you know, that sort of thing is like, has been like crucial in the last 2 years, being able to like find ways to work around how intense my head works in terms of thinking about running.
Yeah. I want to dive into all of that. I want to dive into the years leading up to the event, the 4-minute mile. I want to talk about being there, doing it, what's going through your head, and then also after, and then of course what you have coming up next. I'll say this. So I playing ball through college, like I thought I was in good shape and did all of the things. We did conditioning, and I swore that I would never run again after I got done playing ball. Like, it just wasn't my thing. And I think because my perspective wasn't in the right place, you know, I had a different view on it. And then I read a book by David Goggins called Can't Hurt Me. And if anybody out there hasn't heard of it, I highly recommend it. Go checking that out. And so that got me into running. I think I ran a half mile and I thought I was going to pass out. But as he says in the book, like, your brain will start to tell you, like, you can't, this hurts, it's uncomfortable, stop what you're doing. Like, it hits the panic button. And so what he says in the book is we really only push ourselves to about 40% of what we're really capable of, you know? And so I don't know how accurate that statistic is, but it did open my eyes to say, okay, I think there is more in the tank. I can do this. I started pushing myself. I found a running group here, badass guys, top-notch people, and just great runners. And so surrounding myself with those people. Running now, to me, it's like a must do, like, for my mind. It's like a vent. Like, I got to go do that for a number of reasons. So getting into running, I can appreciate even more what that means to break a 4-minute mile. So we'll go back to what you started in the beginning, or you alluded to in the beginning. When did the dream of breaking the 4-minute mile become a reality to you?
I guess it was probably 2017 was the year that probably kind of, there was a big shift in my athletic performance where, you know, I was like, I kind of was always giving it a lot of, like, my time, but I still don't think it was, like, even close to what I should have been giving at the time, but it was what I was giving at that moment. At that moment, that's what I felt was necessary to me. And so 2017, I had kind of decided to go to an altitude training camp. For people who don't know, that's like you go up in the mountains, like you get up above like 5,000 feet. And the air is just a little bit thinner up there. So it produced, like, you end up producing more red blood cells. It's just like there's a science behind all of that. So
where did you do that at?
So I did that in Font-Romeu in France.
Okay.
That was back when I was living in Ireland. And that was something that, you know, I had done previously, but again, I hadn't really thought why I was doing it or like any of that stuff. You know, I was surrounded by really, really talented people and people who worked really hard. And, you know, in my head, I was just like, oh, I just need to do what they're doing. I didn't think about why, though. I never thought about the why, right? I was just like, that's what I need to do. And it was only until I started thinking about the why and, you know, why am I going to do this? It's like, because there is an aim there. There's a goal there to get to where I want to be, right? And so 2017 came around and I trained my ass off. Well, again, what I thought I was doing was training my ass off, but really it was still only scratching the surface, you know? And I ended up running 3:43 for 1,500 meters, which would be about the equivalent of like a 4:01, 4:02 mile that year. So in Europe, we run 1,500 meters. And so then I got picked up by Drake University in Iowa. Irish national record holder for 3K, Mark Carroll, was the coach there at the time. And I kind of, like, my physical therapist at home and my mom found out about this, and they kind of were like, oh, you should contact him. And, you know, I was like I knew who he was immediately. I was like, yeah, this is something I want to do. And, you know, I hadn't really ever thought about living in America, moving to America, being in America at all. But, you know, I knew once that opportunity came up, and when I emailed him and said, you know, I'm looking for an athletic scholarship, like he said straight away, like, we'll offer you a full scholarship. Like once you get admitted, we're good. So got admitted into Drake, and that was the start of 2018. And that was really when it started, when the Sub-4 really became clear in my mind, was that, you know, I was like, okay, this is like, I'm under somebody now who knows what it takes, first of all, but like he also knows how to guide me to there. You know, right. I think I didn't have the skill set to do it on my own. And I don't know if there's many athletes that do. I think coaches are a really, like, what's the word I'm looking for? They're so important in that step between good and really good, you know. And so when I first got to Drake, you know, we didn't mesh. We didn't get on. We hated each other. You know, we didn't speak for 6 or 8 months. Honestly,
why is that though? What was the conflict?
I think I had a different expectation of what I was coming into. You know, I think as a 21-year-old at that time, I was going to Drake, and you know, most freshmen that go into college are 17, 18, I guess. And I had already done 3 years of college in Dublin. So when I came over, I was expecting a different relationship with him. And like we've spoke about that, like we're best friends now. He's still my coach to the day, and like, you know, we speak every day. So, you know, I can speak openly about this. Is like I just expected that the relationship we have now off the bat without even knowing who he was.
Right.
And so that was something that I just needed to check myself. I just needed to be better at kind of reading the situation that was in front of me.
Yeah.
I walked into a situation where there was 10 or 12 American, and like there was a Austrian guy on my team. Like they're all American kids, and then I was the Irish kid. So I was like, I deserve preferential treatment. That was my downfall. Was that like I thought I deserved more.
What clicked though? What made you be like, okay, I need to wake up. I need to change some things.
Yeah. So end of 2018, I guess it was. I was just like, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep coming back to this place where I have just a crappy relationship with my coach.
Yeah.
You know, like I was still doing everything that he wanted me to do. I was still following his plan, but you know, like really to get the most out of each other, like that communication just needs to be top notch. And so I kind of just, I was putting in the work, and I was probably doing more than he was expecting me to do, but I knew it was what I needed to do to get to that next level, you know. And
what were you running there? Like, what was your event?
So 1500. Okay. Honestly, I don't think I ever raced anything other than a 1500. I maybe raced 1,000 meters like once, but 1500. Like I could go through my results. Like, so I went, and this was my senior year. So like the year I was graduating, I went to Nebraska and ran like 3:59 for 1500. So that's like a 4:20 mile.
Yeah.
Right. And I was just like, I was so defeated. I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And, you know, a couple of weeks later went to Arkansas, ran 3:59, then for 1500 again, went to Kansas, same thing, 3:59 for 1500. And then we had our home meet, which is one of the biggest meets probably in America, is the Drake Relays. And that was coming up. My parents were coming over for it. My sister was flying in from New York. You know, I was like, something needs to change here. And, you know, I don't know if it was just like the kind of the moment that was in it at that on that day, but I ended up running 344, coming third. And I was nowhere in that shape. But I think in my head, I was like, I didn't put pressure on myself. That was the thing. I don't think I put pressure on myself, but I was just like, let's go and enjoy this. Let's go and enjoy the moment that we have here in front of my parents. Like it's pretty rare now that I get to run in front of my parents. So like they're like lifelong lovers of the sport. You know, they've been invested in this sport before I was born. So, you know, to be able to compete in front of them was like, it was a big thing. And I think that was like that was why I think that's why I ran well that day. Yeah. And then I ended up getting another season of eligibility after that, which was unexpected. And, you know, I was training really well. And there was like kind of one race, like there was one cross country race where I ran pretty well. And my coach didn't expect it. Like I ran way above what I was expected to run, and he just didn't expect it. And I think that was like, there was a big kind of shift there where it was like, oh, he's actually now doing the work, and he's not giving me the crap that he was giving me when he wasn't doing the work. It's funny how, and I think I see that more and more now, is that like people do talk a lot of crap when they don't do the work. Yeah. But when they start doing the work, that's when they go quiet.
They get quiet.
Yeah. And I like that. I can appreciate that because I've been there, right? Yeah. And so went home for Christmas. I went back to Ireland for the December of 2019. Just again, trained really, really hard. or was it 2018? I'm not sure what year it was, but came back and I ran like a K in 223, 224, and I was just like, okay, that it's sub-4 season. I was living with 5 other guys on my team, and we were all like hyping it up. It was great. Honestly, it was one of the most fun times of my life. I really enjoyed it, and like I can look back on it and just like it makes me smile. Really, it does.
It's a great time. So I played ball in a similar place in Kansas, Great Bend, Kansas. There's not shit there. I was there to play baseball, and that was it, and drink beer and go to house parties. But baseball was on my mind most of the time, and I have to think it's very similar for you being in Iowa. All you're thinking about is running and getting better at running. Surrounded by other runners.
I think that's what it was. It was just like, the guys there that were on the team loved running. They loved running as much as I did. And I'd never really experienced that. Back in Ireland, I just never experienced a group of guys like in college. Like, it was so, it just wasn't the same. Like, it was like, there was people that were kind of like just to themselves, and everyone was just doing their own thing. Whereas like, once I came to Drake, there was this like, there was a passion to make our program better. And, it started with my coach. And in the end of the day, when I did kind of get to that season where it was an indoor season, the school record was 404. It hadn't been broken for 37 years. And we were kind of all like talking, we were like, oh, it's sub-4 season. I remember the week that I was kind of like really eyeing it up. Like I woke up on a Monday morning and I'm shouting to the house, it's sub-4 week and stuff like that. It's stupid. It was stupid, but like in my head, I was like, this is what I want for everyone around. I want everybody to be excited about this. Yeah. And it got me hyped for it. And like I was getting like texts like from the boys like the morning of it, all this stuff. And it was in Nebraska. And I ended up running 401.47. And like I was elated because I had broken the school record, but also super disappointed. I remember like, I was like so happy, but then I was like, I came across the line. I was like, kind of after about 15 minutes later, I was crying because I was like, can't believe I didn't do it.
That's crazy. Dude. 2 seconds.
It's not even a second and a half, right?
Yeah.
It's literally second and a half. And it's just funny that, in that moment, I was just having fun with it. Yeah. More than anything. I don't think it was like a thought more like, I know you said like, what do you think made you think about breaking 4 minutes? But I don't think even then was like I know I wanted to do it, but I still think I was just having fun with it more than anything. Yeah. Whereas like to actually like kind of fast forward to this like last season when I actually did do it, I felt like there was a lot more pressure on my shoulders. Yeah. Why is
that though, you think? Because of the expectation? Like,
I think just being older, kind of, I'm 26 now, at some point, the idea of running, like I don't really make money from it. So it's like, at some point you got to think, all right, when do I start to realize that I actually need to make like a living? Yeah. It's like, I'm chasing a dream here, right? And I have a note in my room that I pin up on my wall, and it's just like, I remember I was sitting at home, and honestly, it was like probably one of the worst times of my life. It was January 2021. I wrote in my journal, I was just like, I'm so scared that the next 3 months are gonna determine whether chasing a dream was worth it. And I pinned that on my wall because I need to remind myself that it was worth it. Whether people around, like people at home, people who know me want to say like, oh, that's good, but I don't care. I've done something that a lot of people haven't done. And I'm really proud of that. Like, I really am proud of that. Yeah. So, like breaking 4 minutes was like, it really only came to fruition probably in the last year, I guess,
How, you mentioned age, how old are most people that have broken the 4 minute mile?
It's funny because so in Ireland, the youngest Irish guy he's only 17, I guess now. And he ran 3:56 only 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So like, like there's people like Hobbs Kessler for people who know running, like he broke it super young. There is like high schoolers that do it. For the most people, it's probably like 19, 20, 21.
So you were on the kind of the back end, the latter end.
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah. And I think that's why a lot of people probably didn't expect me to do it, and I honestly, I don't blame them. Like, I don't blame anybody for thinking that I wasn't going to do it, because I wasn't super talented when I was in high school, or even in college. It was really only like I stuck at it. I really, like, there was guys who I ran against at 15, 16, 17, 18 years of age who now aren't running. Like, they're not running at all. And I'm like, I'm doing better than they were doing then, but I'm now 26.
Yeah.
So I just don't see age as a factor, really.
I think that was an advantage, though, for having the experience, having more experience than a 19 or 20-year-old that may just be physically gifted.
Yeah, it's hard to know. It really is hard to know, because there's some people in the world that they're just born to be successful. Yeah. And I think there's other people that have to work really hard for it. I think the 18, 19-year-olds are, depending on the people they have in their corner, can either go one way or the other. I think that's in any profession. Yeah. I think there's people who are actors, like singers, like sports players. Like, it doesn't matter where you are. If you're 18, if you don't have the right people in your corner, it can go one way or the other. Yeah. I think the experiences I have been through have definitely helped me to get to where I am today, because I just know there's things that I've done in the last year that there's no 18-year-old that has run 356 or 357, or even 18-year-old like will ever experience. They just won't experience some of the stuff that I've experienced, and that's fine. I'm okay with that.
Give me an example.
I didn't have a home. I didn't have a home, like a place to call home, for probably 8 months of 2021. Just didn't have a home, and that was fine. Again, it was just like something I knew I was signing up for. Like in February, my lease ran up in my house in Boston. I was like, well, now I'm going to move back to Iowa. I stayed with a family friend and stayed with them for a couple of weeks. Had an opportunity to go to Utah, trained there for 5 weeks. Went to Kansas. They paid for a hotel there. It was stuff like that.
Were you training the whole time?
The whole time. Like, still, like, okay. I was living out of a suitcase, like training. Like, I think I had left the majority of my belongings with a friend in Boston.
Right. Because you're training for the 4-minute mile.
Yeah, like training. I think training just to get to a point where I was like, I just wanted to see how good I could get. Yeah. Like, where I could take myself, how far the limit is.
Man, so many questions. Who's in your corner at that time? Do you have a coach? I have to think he's not with you, traveling, living out of a suitcase. What mentors are in your corner along the way?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a couple of people I need to shout out. Like, my parents, one, too. Like, they've been absolutely by my side since day one. Like, I don't think there's any other people in the world that I could say that about. Is that, they've no reason, like, they've had no reason to back me as long as they have, and they still do it, and a lot of people are like, oh yeah, it's family, you have to look after family, but I don't think that's the case. I think they truly believe in what I've done and like what I'm trying to do. Yeah. I've always tried to, like, my dad used to be my coach when I was, I guess, 17, 18, 19, he was my coach at that time. And I just want to make them proud. I want them, because again, they've put so much time into it, but I'd be crazy to say that it's a selfish thing too. Like, I want the best for me. Yeah. But like, to go back to the people in my corner, like, there's people like Lynn Cornelius. She's like the family friend I stayed with at Drake. She's a violence prevention coordinator at Drake University. And like, she's always been there for me. Like, since the day that I met her, like, she's been a mentor as such, somebody who I can rely on to go to and say, I'll just say some outrageous stuff, and she'll check me on it, or she'll help me through some processes. And having that in my corner has been so important, is to be able to have somebody who is going to be straight up with you. Yeah. And not, it doesn't even have to be athletically, you know, like that's like, again, like a lot of what what I want to talk about today is it's like my life hasn't been all athletics. I think the majority of what I've done and what I've like why I've been successful has been outside of athletics. But, you know, another person is my coach, Mark Carroll, right? He's been, since like we kind of started to get along and started to like really have a good connection, like he's been there for me. He's reached like the highest level of the sport. Like he's been to Olympics. He holds Irish national records. He's run faster than the majority of Europeans for 3K, right? Like some of the stuff he's done is crazy, right? And yet he still trains me and still believes in
He's still
me.
coaching at Iowa.
No, so he moved to the Boston Athletic Association just before I graduated.
I see.
So he moved to Boston. That was kind of unexpected. You know, we finished our regional cross country meet, and he was like, "Oh, hey, do you want to go for a run tomorrow morning? Don't tell any of the guys," and whatever. He knew I was graduating, and he was like, "I've got this offer from Boston," and I didn't really know what to think. I didn't really think about it. I had a girlfriend at the time in Iowa, so I was kind of pretty set where I was. I was happy where I was at, and you know, he then called me after he had moved in. I guess he called me like late November, and he was like, "There's a opportunity here. If you want to come out to Boston, you can like live and train like under the BAA, Boston Athletic Association, and we'll take care of your gear, like we'll take care of like flights and accommodation for races and stuff." So I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And you know, that was like a super difficult like time in my life, because you know, I didn't want to leave my girlfriend at the time, but you know, opportunities like that don't present themselves very often.
Right.
You know, so that was like also a really difficult time in my life, like just mentally, just trying to get through that and trying to like assure her that, you know, things will be okay if I go to Boston, and you know, like that's just how it is. And that opportunity came up, so I took it. And you know, that's kind of how I ended up in Boston, was that he got that job there. He asked me to go with him, and you know, it was really a no-brainer for me at that time. So.
Yeah. How long were you there for? How long were you in Boston for?
So it was like, right. So I moved to Boston. I got there in January of 2020. And then I had 3 races, and then it was the end of February, and then COVID hit. And so, you know, at that time it was just like, there was really not a lot I could do. I actually ended up going back to Iowa because I was like, there's no point in staying in Boston. I was like, there's nothing for me there. You know, I could at least stay with my girlfriend in Iowa. And that was better, because I didn't want to be stuck in an apartment on my own. That would just not have been good for anybody. So, you know, took the plane back to Iowa. And then it was just bad timing, because, you know, I graduated, I was on a working visa, but no one was employing, right? So, you know, I burned a whole year of an employment visa, which, like, you know, wasn't making money at the time, still had to pay rent on an apartment in Boston, which I think most people know is not cheap.
Right.
So that was something that was really difficult, you know. And again, like I'll say is that like my parents were always there for me. Like they always backed me up, and they always helped me out with stuff like that. So the sport that I am in, it's funny because I don't know if it's possible to be really successful as somebody trying to come up through the ranks if you do not have a lot of money or somebody supporting you. I just don't think it's possible. Yeah. And so, I mean, I've done the most with what I have to this point, and I'll still keep doing that. I'll keep using myself, like what I do and what I can do as stock to make money. But in the end of the day, it's like, it's a cutthroat sport, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. But you know, it's just something I've had to slowly accept, is that, you know, I'm probably not going to ever make a living from this.
Right. Man, it's very similar to the rodeo athletes, the horse trainers I sit down with. There is no $1 million contracts. They do it because they truly love it. Most of them because that's what they grew up doing, right? And it sounds like you did the same thing. I didn't ask the question, but it sounds like your folks were into running before you were born. You're doing what you love to do. And so I think, I think Stephen Pressfield, he's an author. He wrote The War of Art, Turning Pro, and a number of other books. But he talks about two different salaries in life. There's the monetary, the money that we make, and then there's also the psychological salary that we make from things that we do that do something for us, our psyche, And I don't know that you can put a price on it. As hard as that is for me as an entrepreneur, it's hard for me to wrap my head around sometimes, but there's just certain things that you do, and it's like, it doesn't matter if you make money or if not, you're gonna do that thing, And so I say that to say, like, there has to be a strong why behind what you do with running. And so, like, I want to dive into like some of the training stuff that led up to what you accomplished, right? And so some of those days, some of those moments where you may have questioned, like, what the fuck am I doing? Because we see the highlight. We see that Kevin Kelley ran 3:57. Talk to me about some of those moments throughout that training to where you're questioning it. You're just thinking, man, am I doing the right thing? Because I think there's no matter what field you're in, no matter what arena or what track, whatever the thing is you do, those doubts, those questions come into your brain. So I'm curious to hear from you, an elite athlete. What were some of those moments, and how did you overcome those?
I think a lot of that came out in the races I ran that year. I don't think it ever came out in training, because the thing about my training was it was honestly as good as it ever could have been. Like, I don't think I could look back on any of the workouts or any of the runs that I did. Like, I journal about a lot of what I do in training, a lot of what I do in my personal life. And, I look back on the training aspect, I'm like, it was as good as I think it could have been at that moment. So a lot of the doubt really, really came out in the races, where I was training super well, like everything was going to plan. Me and my coach were really happy with where things were at. But then I would go to a race and just run subpar. It was like, this just doesn't make sense. And, I'm sure if I was to ask my parents how many times they got a call being like, I don't know what I'm doing. Is this worth it? Like, I genuinely but like the funny thing was, a lot of my races were at like 6, 7, 8 p.m. in the evening in US time. And in Ireland, it's like 2, 3, 4. I'm like, I know how my mom is. She doesn't sleep. She does not sleep if she knows I'm racing. Like, she might not even sleep for 2 or 3 days. They're that worried about it. Like, they're that invested in it with me. And so a lot of the time, like, I'll ring them after a race and I'll be like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? And like, there was days where I was like, it was like, they don't know what to say. Like, there's just, I don't think there is a thing that you can say, right? And I think that's where my coach really, really was the changing factor, where like, he really implemented to me. He was just like, Kevin, these workouts that you're doing, like, they're not showing what you can do on the track. Like, what you've done in training is not coming out on the track right now. It's like, sometimes it doesn't all come out right away. And it did. It took us 8 months for it to really click. And when it clicked, it clicked. I was like, oh wow.
Feel it.
Yeah. Oh no, I felt it. I was like, there was like, at that point in my season, I was just like, this is what it's supposed to feel like. At least that's what I thought. And I was just like, all of the work that I had done, I was like, I think there was very few races that I think I'd have gone into and ran badly. Like, after, we had done, it was funny. Like, I ran like 3:47 for 1500. I was like, again, 3:47, very average in terms of like high level.
That's so fucking crazy.
But like, I'm just like speaking off my experience, right? So like 3:47. And that was in Massachusetts, right? And me and my coach were driving home, and he was like, all right, let's go for a couple of beers. I was like, all right, let's do it. Like, I just didn't care at that point. I was just like, let's go for beers. And, we had like quite a number of beers in like one of the bars. And I was just like, we kind of like hashed it out a little bit. And he was just like, all right, maybe we just need to change some things, just like tweak things a little bit. And, we ended up going down to the track a couple of days later and did probably one of my best workouts ever. And had way more volume. it was way more intense than anything I'd ever done leading into a race. And so we did that, and the workout was 3 by a mile off 3 minutes recovery. And I ended up running like 4:18, 4:16, 4:16. All right. So like, to me, like that was like, I was like, I've never done that before. I don't think I've like, when I think about it, I was like, the fastest I'd ever run for 3 or 4 by a mile was maybe 4:30 or 4:35 off the same recovery. So, I knew I was in good shape, but I think I just needed that like reassurance. I think that was just a mindset thing again, was just like in my head, I just didn't believe it. I just don't think up to that point I really believed it. Like the workouts we'd done were good, but not like that. That was a workout that really like, and I know there's going to be athletes that probably hear this and like, oh, it's like, as I'm talking about like elite athletes that might hear this and they'll be like, oh, it's not too bad. Like, yeah, I could do that. Yeah, I'm sure you could, but I needed it.
Right. It sounds like it did something for your confidence. It did
for sure. It did.
That clicked.
Yeah, for sure it did, because I'd never done anything like that before.
Yeah.
But like, again, it was just like, I probably could have done that 3 months before that. I probably could have.
Yeah.
But it was like, I just need, like at that moment, I did need that. And I did it and it was great. And I ended up, that was like that was the start of when things really started to pick up in terms of my performance. Yeah. So like, he knew what he was like, he knew what he was dealing with in terms of like my confidence. He acknowledged it and he was like, okay, let's do something a little different. And he tweaked things, and then we figured it out. And I still think we've only really scratched the surface of what is possible. Yeah. I really think there's a lot more to give.
It's so interesting, man. Like sometimes it is just that, like it's a small shift. What maybe for other people that may not be in running, I'm going to try to make this relatable. Like you may be in the wrong position at work, or you may be, better suited somewhere else, and then all of a sudden everything just makes sense, right? So it can be so simple, and sometimes that can go overlooked, that can go unnoticed, overlooked, and if you stay on this same path, and a lot of it's so tough, man. I want to say there's a balance. I don't know if there is or if there isn't. But it's like, as an ambitious person myself, like I'll get like, this is what I need to do, and this is what I'm going to do, and no matter what. And sometimes I just need to pivot this much, and it can change the entire direction, What is it? So we talked a little bit about like the physicality of it, changing your workouts. What about the mental side? I'll ask you this, and then I'd love to hear your answer on that. Like, physical versus mental, what is the percentage of each as it relates to what you do?
I think it changes throughout the year. I think early season, I think physical is probably 70-30. It's probably 70
mental.
70 physical early season. So like pre-racing season, for sure, it's probably 70-30, I would say. I think there's like
when is racing season?
So usually for a middle distance athlete like myself, I'll do my block of like strength training, or like my base training from October, maybe September, October through February, March. So like, even now I'm still in a pretty base phase of training. And so like a lot of the times, like you're just focusing on like getting the work done. Like there's nothing specific in there. You're not, you're just like trying to like be consistent and be doing the right things all the time. But then when you start shifting to races, I think a lot of the physical has been done already. Like you do the work week in, week out, but I think the mental becomes a lot more pronounced, because you're going to have them doubts come in a lot more often. Because in base training, it's like, it's very rare that you'll have like a day where it's like, it's a really bad day. At least that's how I've found it, is that like my base training is always like, it's always pretty consistent. When you start going to like specific workouts that like you're expecting certain numbers from, and like certain indicators that will say, oh, you're going to perform this well. And if you don't hit them, like that it does definitely hit your ego a little bit, hurts your hurts the mental side a lot more. So, working on that, and that's been, again, like just to go back to Christmas this year, I went home and, I was expecting to, I'd ran the Monroe half marathon, right? And so ran that and felt like I was in really good shape. And I was in good shape, but not that I felt like I was in good shape. I was probably in the best shape of my life. I was hoping to be selected for an Irish team for European Championships that were happening in Dublin, and that to me was an exciting prospect. Didn't happen, and it killed me. Like my head just went, I was again defeated. And that was, again, I think that was my fault. I think I put too much stock on this selection policy, on what they expect. It was what it was. And, I just wasn't the person that they wanted. That was fine. But I think that I put myself in a position where I was only going to be let down. And then that happened. And, I went home for Christmas and didn't get selected. I was just like, so defeated. And I ended up having to take 3 or 4 or 5 weeks off running completely. As in, when I say completely, I might have run 2-3 times a week max for 30 minutes, because I was so burnt out. I was I had put so much time and effort into something that I really, really wanted. Yeah. And I didn't achieve it. And I think I had expected, again, my expectations were wrong. My expectations were just askew. And that's something that, when I was at home for Christmas, I was I need to do something about this. So started seeing a sports psychologist. And, that has been probably the best decision I've made in terms of my athletics. It really has. And, I didn't want to see a counselor or a therapist or anything, because I just don't think that they will understand the amount of time that I put into running. The running is probably 80% of my life. It really is.
So people can understand, how many miles do you run in a week?
Yeah. So last week was 100, just over 100.
100 miles.
100 miles. So it's it equates to probably over 11 hours a week. Yeah. It's not a lot. It's not even a part-time job. It's really not. Yeah. So that was but again,
that's time spent running, actually doing the activity, right? But
it doesn't include the time getting to the facility
and thinking about it.
Yeah, for sure.
And diet, I would have to think. I would love to hear what your diet was throughout the entire training process, and even today, you're still training. So yeah, you say 11 hours, that's actually actual run time. But really, it's subconsciously, it's there. It's running the whole time.
Yeah, no, it is. And that's kind of where, I've addressed this with my psychologist, where, I want to get to...
How did you find that person? What made you say, yes, this is my person. This is who I need to go see?
Again, it was my parents. My mom knew of this guy who had worked with several Irish international athletes in the past. And, he actually is a coach for a Gaelic football team back in Ireland. They've been very successful, and he tried
soccer here, right?
No, so it's Gaelic football it's a mix between American football, soccer, and basketball, I would say. Yeah, it's
rugby.
It really not rugby. It's a crazy sport. But, and again, that's something I grew up doing. I grew up playing that sport and I loved it.
Right
but.
On.
He's a coach for one of the pretty big club teams in Dublin. Okay. And he used to be the CEO of Irish Athletics. So I think my mom just knew him through that avenue. Yeah. And she reached out to him for me, and we kind of sat down for an hour and a half, 2 hours, I think, the first time we met. And I just kind of explained everything that was going on. And I think there was a lot of things that I am holding on to, and I still hold on to, that are not helping me in terms of just life in general. I think there's a lot of things that I expect the best from myself when nobody else really does. You know, everyone has their flaws. That's just like in any avenue of life, everyone has their flaws, and you know, accepting them flaws and accepting that, you know, we can work on that.
Yeah.
I don't think we're ever going to be perfect. You know, there's just never a point where I'll be perfect or, you know, anybody's going to be perfect, but you know, working on them things and acknowledging the fact that, you know, that's not something that I do very well has been huge. It's been huge. The fact that I can say, I don't do that well. I don't accept control, like not being in control very well. I don't do it well.
Yeah.
And that's something I've worked on really hard in the last couple of months. And it's, you know, like when things don't go my way, I still go into that pattern of like, you know, I kind of put it into a way of waves, right? You know, I ride this wave where things are going really well. And then when control is taken away from me, that wave crashes down on me. And I have to like try and swim back up to the top of that wave. Yeah. You know, that's how I put it, is that, you know, I think control has been a really big thing for me in terms of I try not to put myself in positions where I feel like I'm out of control. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think that's dangerous because I think control, you know, being in control doesn't ever really allow you to grow that much. Yeah. And I've only really started to acknowledge that recently since I've started working with him. So, you know, that sort of stuff has been next to the most important stuff I've ever done for my sport.
Yeah, that's awesome. When you think about it, there's really very few things in life that we have control over, you know? And it took me a long time to realize that. One of the few things that we do have somewhat control over is our brain, is our mind. And so I've taken it on as like my personal responsibility to seek like the depths of my mind. How does the human brain operate? Why does it operate the way it does? I want to see the vision beyond the vision. I want to know, like, as humans, we're very limited in our senses. We only have 5 of them. Take some LSD or mushrooms and you'll realize there's much more out there than what we can even comprehend, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that's good. And I every human, I would say, in my experience, is dealing with something on some level, right? We tend to play this comparison game. We're comparing our behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. You know, it's social conditioning. Like, this is all around us from a very young age to even adults. We play this game and it's not fair to ourselves. You know what I mean? It's not a fair game because you're not on the same playing ground. You're not on the same playing with the same rules. So kudos to you for doing that, to like reaching out. People, I don't know why people think that's taboo to reach out to a therapist, to reach out to someone. I had friends that played professional baseball, like 90s, the 80s before, like that was like, you don't talk about mental health. You don't talk about like mental health as it relates to performance or just life. Nowadays, like every team has a sports psychologist. That's normal.
Yeah, I think it's normal.
Quote, normal, yeah.
Right. I think it is. It's becoming more normal, right? But I think there's still a massive stigma around guys talking about their emotions and talking about what's really on their mind. Yeah. You know, like, again, when I was in college, you know, myself and 2 of my friends, we worked with my family friend Lynn, like the violence prevention coordinator, to start a men's group on campus. You know, we wanted to create a space for men to come and talk about things that they generally wouldn't talk about amongst their close friends. You know, because a lot of the time it's like guys just feel so, they just, and again, I've been this guy. I've been in this area where I've been like, I don't know if I spoke to my friends about this, how they'd react. And I think that's the big thing is that, like, I don't want to lose a friend. And I don't think we ever would. I think it's only our brains. And I think it's, again, the stigma around talking to people and talking to our friends about things that are going on in our head. It's like, you know, we have to be able to make it a normal conversation. Yeah. Because, you know, like, shit, now I talk to my friends about everything. Like, I'll tell them all sorts of things because they understand who I am, and they've had experience and they've been exposed to who I've been for 4 years now. Yeah. And, you know, that's been great for all of us. There's been growth from everyone. You know, there's probably guys there who were never like this in the past. Like they were like, oh, talking about like guy stuff or about mental stuff. No, not me.
Yeah.
But now it's like, you know, the exposure and having somebody in their corner who makes them feel like, you know, speaking about this stuff is okay.
Yeah.
You know, that's all I like, again, like that's something I'm super passionate about. It really is something I'm passionate about. And, you know, probably more so than running is that like, I really want like guys like to be okay.
Yeah.
I'm not saying everybody needs a therapist or everybody needs a counselor or anything like that, but there is a huge stigma around men's mental health. And I want everybody, anybody that's listening, you know, there's probably a guy in your life that's suffering. There probably is, and you don't know it.
Yeah.
And that's the worst thing to me is that, you know, we're living in this world where there's guys around us suffering all the time.
Yeah.
And we don't even ask, are you okay?
Yeah.
We don't even ask that. And I don't know why that is. I just don't, again, it's something I'm trying to get to the bottom of, but that's something that has really, when I was in college, was like something I really put a lot of stock into.
Really cool to hear you say that. I think the same way. And I realized that after sharing like some of my own thoughts. And for me, it's like a stage of personal growth, you know, to open up and talk about some of those things with some close friends of mine, guys that I play ball with. We didn't do that. You don't do that, you know? And when I did, they thanked me. They said, man, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Like, because it resonated with them. They then opened up and shared some of their stuff, their insecurities. Everybody has it, whether you think it or not. Everybody has some insecurities. It's human nature. You know, we all have flaws, yet we always want to present perfect, whatever perfect is to the rest of the world. And there is no perfect, I don't think, you know, and especially as competitors, you know, I think that's a different brain. That's a different brain. You want to compete, like you want to present the highest level of yourself, whatever that may be. And that's good. It's like this, where's the balance of like, because I think that's good. Like that is why I have been able to achieve things I have, or anybody that has achieved any level of success, like you breaking a 4-minute mile, that's what's pushed you to do that. But also like there is this anxiety that comes along with that. We've chatted briefly. When we first met, we ran a 5K at the Flying Tiger Brewery, and I had heard of who Kerry Kelley was, but I didn't know you were that guy that I was running with that day. And so we were like 1.5 miles in, and I can't breathe. And like, you're just talking to me like normal. And I'm like looking at my watch, like, God damn, we're like 6:30, like nothing to you, you know? And to most people that may not be a fast mile, but, I'm sitting there just running with you and we're talking and I'm like, man, there's something different about this guy. And then I find out later who you are and what you've accomplished. Talk to me about some mindset stuff that you go through, some of the self-talk that may be going through your head during a race. And I think about that because 3 minutes and 57 seconds is a very short amount of time. But if you are sprinting, I have to think that is an eternity in your own brain. So what in the world, like what is going through your brain during that race?
It's fun. Yeah. I think it can go several different ways. It really depends on how the race pans out. You know, for me, I was surrounded by other guys who were really good, who I knew were going to break 4 minutes that day. And I mean, not that I didn't think I was going to, I fully believed, like going into that race, I was like, it was a done deal before I'd even stepped on the line.
How many guys were in that race?
I think there was 8 of us.
On a track?
Yeah. But it was an 8-lane track, like as in like there was a lot of space. But, you know, we all just got on the line and we just got on it. And there was a pacer and somebody took us through 8 or 1,000 meters. I can't remember what it was. I literally can't even remember what it was. The only thing I remember was being at the bell lap. So when you get to the last lap, the bell will ring. And a lot of times that will just like just all these like endorphins will start flowing, like more adrenaline. It's great. It really is. It's a nice thing to hear. And we were at like 301 or 3 flat, maybe 301 at the bell. So, you know, we weren't on it. Like it wasn't a given. I don't think anybody in the stadium was like, oh yeah, they're definitely going to break it. You know, my sister and her fiance at the time were there, and like her friends, like there was a group of Irish people there, which was great. And, you know, I don't think they were nervous. They were nervous that it wasn't going to happen. And I don't ever remember thinking really too much or having any thought for the first, honestly, for maybe all of it. I don't remember thinking at all about it. You know, like you asked the question, is like, what's going through your head? I don't think anything at that point. You know,
breathing.
Yeah, I think you're just hanging on. You're staying on the guy in front of you. And that was in my head what was important at that moment. It was like, I feel fine. Like I felt fine. I didn't feel bad. Like I wasn't like, this is like strenuous. You know, I was like, I'm right there. I'm with everyone else. Like these guys are, they have run 355, 356 for a mile before, you know, and I'm right there. You know,
you weren't a watch.
No. So there's a clock on the track, so we can see like when I'm going through with 400 meters to go, 1 lap to go, I can see the clock. And I'm like 301. I'm like, oh God. I was like, this is gonna be tough. But you know, we ended up running 357. You know, the guy who won it ran 355, I think, or 356, maybe 355. And so, you know, we finished really, really fast. So like, when you average it out over 4 laps, yes, I ran sub 60s for 4 laps, but really I only ran like probably 60.5, or maybe 60.5, 60 and 60.5 for 3 laps.
Right.
And then ran way faster for the last lap, you know, and again, like you train for all of them scenarios.
Right.
So again, I didn't panic. There was no sense of like, oh God, this may not happen. I knew it was going to happen. Like, and like, I will go back to like the day before. Like I arrived in New York. It was in New York. I was living in Boston at the time. Drove down, and, you know, I went, my sister was at a work function. So I met her fiance, and he was in a bar, and he was drinking. I was like, I'll have a few drinks. So,
I'm Irish.
No, it was nothing to do with that. I was just like, you know, what else am I I'm not gonna go home because, you know, again, to me, going back to the apartment was like, I'll just start thinking about it.
That meant thinking about the race. Yeah.
Right. It's like, I don't need to do that. I've already thought about it enough. I was like, I know I'm gonna do it. And like, I had this conversation with Steven, like he's my sister's husband now. And I was just like, he was so nervous because he was just like, I'd had 4 Guinness. I was like, I'm fine, man. I was like, I'm going to break it. I was like, I know I'm going to break it. I said it. I was like, I know I'm going to break it. And he was like, I'm at 4, you're done. And so at 4, I went home, whatever it was, what it was. But like, I knew I was going to do it.
Yeah.
In my head, like there was absolutely no part of me at that moment that thought it wasn't going to happen.
Had you ran that race in your head before?
No, not at all.
No visualization.
Not at all. It was such a wild experience. It really was a wild experience because I went into it being like, I'm going to break 4 minutes. I didn't know how it was going to happen. I didn't know if it was going to be fast from the start or if it was going to be slow from the start or if it was just going to be a good pace. I just knew it was going to happen. Yeah. It was such a weird thing. It was a really weird thing. But, you know, again, them workouts that I had done prior, like the 3 mile, I had done a couple of races. I had run 2 races in Ireland at the Irish National Championships. Like, again, like that, I just felt really, really good. And then I did a workout after that and I was just like, yeah, like there's just no way I'm not breaking 4 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, honestly, when I think back now, if I hadn't broke 4 minutes, it probably would have crushed me. It probably would have ended it.
Yeah. But I think there's something about that. It's like that. I journal about this a lot. Like, I think there's different levels of confidence. And you had put the work in to overcome any self-doubt that may have came up.
100%.
Tell me if I'm wrong, but
no, 100%.
That's what it seems like.
100%. I think I knew exactly where my strengths were at that moment. And that was what was important to me. It was like, you know, I had done the work for 8 months, maybe 10 months at that point. I had done so much work. And, you know, getting to a point where I was just like, I just know that this is like, it's an inevitability. It was an inevitability at that point. And, you know, I don't know, like, if it was just like the day that was in it, you know, my sister was there, like there was
What
people.
were the conditions? What's the weather
Oh,
like?
it was perfect. It was probably over, it was July, it was in New York, it was overcast, it was probably 65 degrees. It was perfect. Like there was no wind. It was on Randall's Island. You know,
what did you eat the night before?
I don't even know if I ate. I think I just had the Guinness, and I had 4 Guinness. I genuinely think so. I think I just had the Guinness. I might have had some pizza, like maybe like a slice of pizza.
Did you ever feel like, I know you were probably in the best shape you've ever been in. Like, is there pain going through you at some point during that race?
I don't think so.
Never.
Not at that point. No, not in that race. That was like one. There's two or three races in my lifetime that I can say I don't remember experiencing pain until after it.
Oh,
you know, after it, you know, like I came across the line. I was just like, whew. I just ran 3 feet. I have a video of it. I was like I came across the line. I was like, my arms in the air, and I'm like, I did it. You know, that was great. But you know, after running, I broke 340 maybe 3 weeks before that on the same track. So 340 for 1500 meters, 339 I ran, and that was probably, again, like, didn't really feel pain during that race.
Yeah, but
I went to jog afterwards to do my cool down and got sick everywhere.
Throw up?
Yeah, just threw up everywhere. You know, and that's like something I was just like, I know I had experienced before, but you know, like after the mile, it was just like there was nothing.
Yeah.
I came across the line, I was like, not that I could do it. I would never say I could do it again in 10 minutes, but it felt that way. It really felt that way. You know, I had been so prepared. And, you know, it felt like everything kind of led up to that point that it was just like, it was just a really nice experience.
So you go through the training, you go through day after day, you break the 4-minute mile. Is there a lesson? Is there a key takeaway, something that's still with you today that you learned through that process?
If you're on a journey, if you're on a mission to do something or anything, if you have a goal in mind, there's always going to be doubts. There's always going to be speed bumps. There's always going to be roadblocks. You just got to find a way. You really do. I think that that has been the biggest thing for me. I know my parents still are worried about like, what am I doing next? Because I'm still trying to run. I'm still trying to run professionally. I'm still trying to run at the highest level, you know, but I'm 26. I'm living in Monroe and I'm barely making ends meet, barely. And, you know, it's just like in my head, I'm like I will be fine. I know I'll be fine. I've done this for so long now. I know I'm going to be fine. But it's also like, you know, there's times where that creeps in where you're just like, you know, how am I going to be okay? But I have so much evidence from the last 4 years that will just tell me you will be okay.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's being able to, again, the journaling has been huge for that because, you know, you write down when things aren't going so well and why they're not going so well. It's like, why are things not going well? What is the reason for that? And then how am I gonna get to the next place? How am I gonna get to the place where things are going well?
Yeah.
You know, there's the why, what, and how. You know, and that's only something that I picked up recently. It's like, you know, there are 3 things that, you know, you can write in a journal and it takes 3 minutes.
Right.
It takes 3 minutes. And, you know, you may be like, oh, journaling doesn't help. Do that for a week. And I'm telling you, it's going to become a big part of your life.
What made you start writing? What made you start journaling?
It's funny, actually. It was an ex-girlfriend of mine. You know, we were in a distance relationship and we just journaled a lot. And it just ended up becoming more of a journal for myself than a journal for us. And that kind of just became something that I found was really, really helpful. It was like something
you
that
would share your journal with each other.
We would, yeah.
Right.
Because, you know, like we were on different time zones, stuff like
Yeah.
that. So, you know, it was easier for us to journal than to like text.
Yeah.
So that was like, it was a shared journal. It was like
Probably more pure too, I would think.
way more.
Yeah.
Yeah, way more.
Yeah.
Because you don't have that, you know, when you're on FaceTime or when you're on the phone, like you don't have that person like on a, like they're like, they might be dealing with their own stuff at that moment.
Yeah.
You just don't have that. So
Yeah.
it's like you're both dealing with your own stuff at the same time.
Yeah.
And it just was like something that I was like, wait, this is like something that I find really helpful on a personal level. And from that moment on, I just took it and I was just like, I ran with it. I was just like, being able to write to myself and, you know, write about things that are going on in my life, that was something I don't like. I'm so glad that I picked up, because I look back on it now and I'm like, I can resonate with that person when I was 18, 19. I'm like, I'm a different person, but I also carry a lot of what happened to me then.
You're still that person, but you're a different person.
Yeah, still that
As
person,
weird as
but
that is,
you know, I've grown so much.
Yeah, I it's one of those must-haves for me every single day. At some point, I'm gonna have a pen and be writing in my journal. Man, what's next? So I'm curious to know, like, you go do this, you achieve the goal. And one thing I always say is the journey is the destination. I always felt like if I could, how does it go? If then, like, if I get this, then I'll be happy. The if then always happens. So if I can break 4 minutes, man, that'll be great. So you do it. Now what? What's the next goal?
I think there has been a big shift in the past couple of months where I see my role as more of a, like, I want to guide other people to what they want to achieve. You know, I still want a lot for myself. I still want to make Irish teams at European levels, at world levels, stuff like that. I still have goals of making Olympics, whether they're out there or not. Like, I mean, like, it might be a long shot, but I still think it's possible. I wouldn't say it if I didn't think it was possible. But, you know, I think that there has been a shift where, you know, my goal is to help others achieve what they don't know is possible. You know, what is in them and what they want to do. You know, it's never too late to start what you want to do. I genuinely believe that. You could be 50 years of age and want to do something you've wanted to do it your whole life. Start doing it. Just do it. You know, get the right people in your get the right people in your corner, and you can do it. You can do it. Yeah. You know, our society tells us that, you know, we're too old. Like, my own profession would say that 26 is too old to be a professional athlete. It probably would. I just think that's just nonsense.
Right.
It is nonsense.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, like, you're basing this off the fact that, you know, there is 17 and 18-year-olds coming out of high school who are as good as me and definitely better than me.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they're going to keep, their trajectory isn't going to be X or Y, you know, like, yeah. I know what I've done. I know where I can get to. And I think that is invaluable, is knowing the experiences that we have gone through, or I have gone through, to get to the next level. Like, what's next for me? I don't know. I really don't know. Like, but I want it to be helpful for another generation. Yeah. I really, like, for myself, I have no ambition to be this, like, guru of anything. I don't care. I just want people to be the best versions of themselves, and I want to help them get there. Yeah. You know, I've had somebody in my corner who has helped me get to that point. He's helped me, my coach has helped me get to a point where I didn't think I'd ever get, you know? And so I want to help the next generation of people, whether it be athletics, academia, like their professional jobs. Like, you can really be, like, somebody that makes a difference.
Yeah.
If you really make that effort. And you know, I don't know how, like, I'm not very good at articulating this sort of stuff yet. You know, I'm working on it.
Doing a pretty good job.
But, you know, there's times where, like, I talk to people and I'm like, you know, I've talked to people who are in school still and they're like, oh, you know, I'm not sure if what I'm doing is the right thing. I'm like, okay, then do what you think is right. Do what you want to do. Don't do what you are expected to do.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of stuff really bothers me because it's like, you're only doing that for a certain person or a certain amount of people.
Yeah.
Do what you want to do, because if you don't do what you want to do, you're going to be unfulfilled.
Yeah.
And I'm doing what I want to do. Like, it makes me, it puts me in a tough position day in, day out, but I love it. I absolutely love it. Like, I couldn't imagine my life any other way. Like, I think of all my options outside of running. If I'm not a runner, or if I'm not doing what is true to me, I'm just not gonna be happy.
Right.
Right. And so that's like where, like, I want people to really resonate with that. Like, this isn't a running thing. This is not a running thing at all.
Yeah.
This is a find yourself.
Yeah.
And if you are listening to this, and if you're really like tuned in right now, do what you want to do, because nobody else is gonna, like, your boss isn't gonna tell you to do what you want to do, because if you're doing something for that person, they're gaining from it.
Right.
You do what you want to do, and the people that you're gonna help are gonna be so much better off for it.
Yeah.
That's just how it goes.
Yeah. I absolutely love that, man. And I feel like as part of society, I always say this, social conditioning, we're taught to value certain things. We look to others that teach us to value certain things. However, if you do what you truly want to do, and we live in this microwave society, we want instant gratification, right? But if you truly do what you want to do, and I'm saying this to you guys as much as I'm saying it to myself, right? Like, anything that I ever put out there, I'm not preaching. Like, this is coming back at me just as much as it's going out. Do what you truly want to do. Money will come. If you are the best at what you do, I promise you the money will come. As hard as that is to focus on.
But, you know, I'm just going to interject there real quick, because, you know, like, I don't think it's about being the best at what you can do. I don't think that matters. Like, personally, just to go off your point, I don't think that matters. I think if you put everything that you have into what you are passionate about, the money will come. Being the best at it, because really, like, how many things...
How about this? How about if you are your best? If you try to be the best,
exactly.
You are
your best. Because I was sitting with my coach in Park City in Utah, and we were like overlooking, it was such a beautiful view, and he was just like, Kevin, what do you want to achieve in the sport? And I was just like, you know, I just want to be the best that I can be. It didn't matter about what anyone else was doing.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. Like, I'm not doing this because I'm comparing myself to anybody else. I was in that space where, you know, I grew up around athletes who were really, really talented. And, you know, that comparison factor was like, it was so detrimental, you know? And now I'm just got to a point where I'm like, whatever this person does not matter.
Yeah.
Like, whatever they do does not matter. Because in the end of the day, I'm not going to look back on my career and say, oh, but they ran this. No, I'm going to, like, when I'm 80 or 70 or 80 or 90 years, whatever age I am, I'm going to be like, I ran 357. If I never run faster than that, I still ran 357, you know? And, you know, if I can help the next generation and the generation after that and the generation after that to achieve their best, I don't care what I've ever done. I really don't. I really don't. Like it's not about me. I want to uplift the people around me, and my own reputation. It's not important to me. It really isn't. And I think a lot of people need to understand that, like, we had our moment. Like, I had my moment.
People ask that, like, what is, I've answered that question in job interviews before. how do you define success? And that would be my answer. Success is doing whatever my best is at that time. Very subjective, and it's very tricky too, because what is my best? I don't fucking know. I don't know. And I'm looking to others to see what's possible, but not in a way that I want to compare myself in a negative light, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? So there's like this tricky balance between looking to others to see what's possible and doing what's true to me, and figuring out what it is that is my best. Does any of that make sense?
No, it makes complete sense. And I think that's what I'm saying, is that, like, you know, you could be sitting in a job in New York City or in Boston or Chicago making $250,000 a year, and you're desperately unhappy.
Yeah.
You could legit, or you could be sitting in the middle of Oklahoma and making $50,000 a year and be the happiest person in the world.
Yeah.
You know, money, it's just, it's such a minor, like, factor on happiness.
Dude, I was telling you about that trip to Terlingua. This time last year, I go down there with $50. I have zero, like nothing really as it relates to like finance. And I was so happy. Like, I was happy going and playing my guitar on that porch. I met so many cool people. I had a different outlook, different perspective. I was viewing life through a different lens. And sure, like, it's not a true, like, I'm broke, I only got $50, because I know what I have back home. But I tried as best I could to put myself in that situation and live that life as if it were my own at the time. And that was an eye-opening experience, because money does not equal happiness, you know?
No.
And so kudos to you for what you're doing, you know, and the perspective that you have on passing on the learnings, the lessons that have came your way, and passing that on to the next generation. And I think that's important. I forget what book I was reading, but that's what it was. I think it was the Essentialism book we spoke about earlier. Mm-hmm. It's about not about like what we do in this world, but what do we leave behind? Not in the sense of like a legacy, but like, what have we left behind to other people to learn from?
Right. I think it's such a good way to look at it, is that, like, you know, I broke 4 minutes. Like, to a lot of people, that's really, like, fantastic. To me, it's like, I'm super proud of it. But, you know, like, I still think the experiences I have been through and all of that I've experienced has given me way more tools to help another generation. Yeah. And whether it be in life in general, whether it be in athletics, in running, you know, like, there is so many lessons to be learned here. Yeah. And I want people to be the best versions of themselves. Yeah. And, you know, there's always going to be roadblocks there, and there's always going to be points where you question what you're doing. But that's not just you. Yeah. That's everybody. That's everybody that's ever done anything ever. Like, that's just how it is. Yeah. You know, there's people out there who are like millionaires who doubted themselves probably a million times. Mm-hmm. But they were like, all right, well, I'm going to doubt myself and keep going. Yeah. You know, and I've just not been there yet. I've not been in that place of doubt that many times, because, again, I said to you, I was like, I don't like being not in control. I don't like not having control. Yeah. So I just don't, I tend not to put myself in them positions. Yeah. But I think if I did put myself in them positions more often, I would learn a lot more about myself and about what is possible. Yeah. You know, so there's just so much, there's so much to be learned here. Yeah. It's just, man, it's like, yeah, I don't like, I still don't know how, like, I still feel like I'm not articulating what I'm thinking correctly. Yeah. But, you know, the human potential is, it's so massive that we don't know. We have no idea. Yeah. You know, but yet we're, again, like you said, the comparison thing, you know, we compare ourselves to the next guy or the next girl or the next person who is in our profession. you've absolutely no idea how far you can go. And if you're comparing yourself to somebody who's the best, it's like you've no idea how far you can go.
Mm-hmm.
Stop comparing yourself to it. Compare yourself to yesterday's self.
Yeah.
Because the only comparison you can ever make is to the person that was yesterday in your own body.
Yeah.
And if you can better that every day and keep doing that, you're gonna have days where it's not gonna be possible. But it's in them days that you gotta go deep in here
mm-hmm.
and work on yourself.
Yeah.
And say, all right, how do I get out of this funk, or how do I get out of this moment and keep working towards what I want to achieve? You know what I'm saying?
I do, yeah. Is there that I feel like that's what shapes our character. That's what develops who we are as a competitor and as a human. A question I like to ask is, do you have a favorite failure? Something that maybe you perceived at the time as a failure, but looking back, you realize, man, that had to happen in order for this to come about.
Yeah, I really think that experience with my coach, like that first experience where we just didn't kind of mesh at all. I think that was a really important thing for me. I think it was really, and maybe it was important for him. I don't know. Like it was definitely important for me to learn that, you know, you can't just expect something because you think that's what you deserve.
Yeah.
I think that's I think we're in a world where we think we deserve everything. Yeah. And we just don't. Like, I mean, I felt like I deserved something that I didn't. I needed to work for it. Yeah. You know, I knew the man all of probably 2 months, and I was expecting us to be like that, and we just weren't. But like, that's not unusual. It's like, you know, it took us 2 years of like, you know, getting to know each other, hating each other, really liking each other, and now we're like fairly close. It's like, you know, I can talk to him about pretty much anything. Yeah. I think that was the biggest stepping stone for me, where it was just like, you know, be open to that change, be open to that opportunity of somebody else helping you to get to another level.
Right. Right. I dig it, man. Man, I could sit here and talk to you for a few more hours, I believe. Okay, we're going to go into rapid fire, brought to you by my friends over at Fleet Feet, Mr. Mike Franzo. What is a book that you have gifted most to other people?
Probably Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey.
Mr. McConaughey.
That's honestly one I only listened to maybe 2 or 3 days ago. It was
really?
On my run, yeah, I really needed it. I really needed that kind of what is a green light for me, and you know, what are the things that stop me? You know, how am I going to get past these things? You know, Green Lights, I think, by Matthew McConaughey is my number one that I've suggested to a lot of people.
Yeah, such a great book. Because McConaughey, I listened to it, right?
Yeah. So I did the audiobook too. I'm not much of a read, like I don't read a lot, but I will do audiobooks a lot. Yeah. But that one was especially good because he narrated it.
Yeah, he narrates it, and there's so many lessons to be learned in there that I think anybody could resonate with.
Anybody,
you know? Yeah. Next question. What is craziest thing that you've seen on a run?
The crazy thing, maybe it was probably through COVID. I was running on the road, and there was a sidewalk, and you know, I had my mask around my neck, and this lady like steps in front of me, like jumps out on the road, and is just like, it's not a bandana. And I'm like, but I'm running like 5-minute pace. I'm like in the middle of a workout. I'm like, I literally stepped off the sidewalk to get out of your way. And that was honestly, that's probably the craziest thing. It was a wild time. It was a really wild time.
Have you ever thought about doing any ultra marathons?
So, not ultras, but trail running has definitely been on my mind a lot recently.
Right on.
You know, doing like marathons on trails and stuff like that, really like just having hiked a little bit recently. Like it's been something that I kind of talked about, something that really I think I would enjoy doing.
Right on.
But I think that would come maybe after I've kind of expelled what I think is possible on the track or on the road.
Right on.
Yeah.
What shoe of choice for trainers? What are you training in?
Adidas Supernova. That is honestly probably my favorite shoe of all time.
Why is that?
I think at a certain time where I wasn't enjoying running it, and maybe these two things just like coincided with just I wasn't in love with running, didn't love it, didn't really care for it, and then I think there was a shift where I started to enjoy running a little more, but it was at the time that I started wearing these runners. But I absolutely love them. Like I will put them on for anything. Like they're my favorite runner of all time.
What about race shoe?
It's a conflicting question because I've had some really good races in a lot of different shoes, and nowadays it's hard to say because of the era of carbon shoes. But I think the Nike Victory is probably my favorite shoe. Yeah, so it's a racing shoe. It's a racing spike. The Zoom Victory, would be my.
What were you wearing when you broke the 4-minute? Wow.
So I wore the newest Avanti by Adidas. Or no, was it the Ambition? Sorry, it was the Ambition. Which has, I'm pretty sure it has like some carbon rods in it. So that it feels good. It feels really good.
Translation for those of you in America, that is Adidas.
Yeah. So the Adidas Avanti or Ambition, that was the shoe of choice. And the funny thing was the day before I ran 3:39, I didn't have that shoe. I got it probably 12 hours before I ran that race. Didn't ever run in it.
What made you go with that one?
We just like with the BAA, with the Boston Athletic Association, we had just got the shipment of the spikes that night.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, oh, what size are you? They like, usually what it takes like a week or 10 days for them to kind of break down all of the boxes. And they were like, well, he's racing tomorrow, so let's get him a pair. And so they grabbed me a pair, and that was kind of how that happened.
Right on.
Yeah. It's like the carbon era is crazy, man. It really has like, it's been a massive shift in our sport.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could talk about that alone for probably 2 hours.
Yeah. Right on. Last question, my friend. If you could have a billboard to get a message out to millions of people, what does your message say? Sometimes
it's the people that no one imagined anything of that do the things that people cannot imagine.
Well said, my friend. Well, dude, I'm glad you came in. I'm glad we finally made this happen. I know we've talked about it for months, and scheduling conflicts and logistics got in the way, but I'm glad we finally made it happen on St. Patty's Day.
Of course. What a day to do it. What a day to do it.
And so thank you, my friend. I've learned a lot. I've truly enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys get something out of this. It doesn't matter if you're a runner or not. We all have a human brain and a mind and a mindset. So, Kevin, I appreciate it, my friend.
Yeah, Mike, thank you so much for having me. It was honestly such a pleasure. Like I've been on podcasts before, but this has been really, really nice to dig into some of the real things that affect, I think, the human brain rather than just the racing side of things or the athletic side of things. I think a lot of what we spoke about today really could resonate with anybody that does anything.
Right on. I agree.